Hi, I am Aleph. Richard Dawkins is the world's most famous atheist and evolutionary biologist. He also acknowledges the biological reality of race. He explains on the Coleman Hughes podcast.
I mean, it's obvious. There are geographically separated groups of humans who have different genetic clusters in common. Now, what is true is that the variance between humans, between different races, is much less than the variance within races. In other words, one way it's been put is that if you wiped out all of humanity except one subpopulation, most of the variation would be preserved. In other words, most of the available human variation is present in all different races. That doesn't mean that race is invalid. Race is a valid concept. It is real. There really are differences which are correlated with each other: skin color, shape, various different things, blood groups. All these things are correlated with each other. And so I think it's nonsense to say that race is a social construct. Race is a real biological phenomenon.
What he is saying is true, of course, regarding the correlations. However, I wish he had been more explicit about what that genetic variation means. He says that if we wiped out all of humanity except for a single race, most of the variation would be preserved. However, he fails to put this into perspective. Here is Henry Harpending explaining the equivalent of that in a randomly mating population.
Instead of imagining that all humans except Maya were gone and Maya repopulated the Earth, let's imagine that one human repopulated the Earth. Now, we can't do this. I can't self because I can't make eggs. But imagine that I could self. Imagine that we could create a new generation that was all made by two gametes from me. I can't do it. A pine tree could, I suppose. What would the diversity loss be? And the answer is it would be 1/2. And the reasoning is pretty simple. My heterozygosity, my diversity is the same as anyone else's. And if we pick two gametes from me and made a new individual, half the time that individual would be a homozygote because they'd be two copies of the same thing from me. Half the time it would be a heterozygote. There'd be a diversity loss of exactly 1/2. If a single individual repopulated the Earth. Well, this is all word games, but every textbook in anthropology makes a point. It says most genetic diversity is within populations, which is true enough, but it's spin. Most diversity is within a single person. More than half of human genetic diversity is within Tiger Woods, who is a famous athlete in North America who has multiracial ancestry. So if we take one person, we retain half our diversity. If the Earth is repopulated from a single couple, we lose 1/4 and we keep 3/4 of our diversity. If two couples from a random mating population were to repopulate the Earth, the diversity loss would be 1/8. We would retain 7/8 of the population diversity, and therefore the Lewontin bottleneck is equivalent to a bottleneck of two couples. That does not seem trivial. Right? I can agree that 1/8 is a small number. On the other hand, if you tell me that a species is reconstituted from 4 people, 2 couples, is that a severe bottleneck? I think it's severe.
This also has a bunch of implication which I discuss in my previous video, the genetics of race. In summary, in the context of the world population, your relatedness to a person of your same race is equivalent to your relatedness to a half-brother in the context of a randomly mating population. However, back to Richard Dawkins. He explains what would be a sensible form of eugenics in the following video.
And Tui asks, if eugenics is immoral when it comes to humans, is selective breeding of animals also immoral?
That's a very good question. First of all, some people think that eugenics wouldn't work with humans, and obviously it would work with humans. There's no reason why humans should be unique, because it works with animals, so there's no reason why it shouldn't work with humans. The questioner has a very good point that if it's supposed to be immoral with humans, why wouldn't it be immoral with animals? I think it would be unfortunate if it were practiced on humans in the sort of Hitler-type way, which is a compulsory government-sponsored, government-organized eugenics. That would be immoral. The alternative view is for not government-sponsored but voluntary eugenics from people who say know that they've got a gene for, let's say, hemophilia in the family, and perhaps they know that the woman is a carrier for hemophilia or some other such disease which is carried on an X chromosome. Then using IVF, using in vitro fertilization, what you can do is extract one cell from, say, an 8-cell zygote, an 8-cell embryo, and analyze its genes. And normally you have a sample of, say, 10 different eggs, different zygotes to choose from to implant back in the woman. And that's done at random at present. If you could sample the genes from the 10 available embryos and pick one of the ones that doesn't have the hemophilia, whatever it is, then it's hard to see how anybody could see that as immoral. That would be a perfectly sensible kind of eugenics. It's rather a shame that the word eugenics becomes tarred with the brush of the sort of dictatorial Hitler-type eugenics, whereas a very humane type would be the use of it with IVF to make sure that some hereditary disease like hemophilia is not passed on.
There you have it. It is perfectly sensible to implement eugenics programs to eliminate hereditary disease. It saves the person and their families a great deal of suffering and the state a fortune in medical costs. However, listen to what he says about selecting for other traits.
Difficult one.
Right.
I was talking about negatives, removing things like hemophilia.
Right.
When it's a case of wanting your child to have blue eyes or wanting the child to be a brilliant musician or a brilliant mathematician, that's much more controversial. And I think there'd be a great deal of opposition to that.
Even though he did not explicitly condemn this kind of selection, he did not explicitly endorse it either. But why would he not explicitly endorse selecting for, say, intelligence? He is all about the progress and the public understanding of science, right? Where does he think science is going to advance more and be better understood? In a society full of dim people? Or in a society full of intelligent people? Why is he not endorsing this as vocally and energetically as he endorses atheism? There is a significant negative correlation between religiosity and intelligence. If he wants to destroy religion once and for all, why not begin by doing something for raising the intelligence of the population? Richard Dawkins has a significant amount of influence. His endorsement of embryo selection to raise human intelligence could contribute to the practice becoming more widespread and even receiving government subsidies. We have the scientific means to do this. We know of thousands of genetic variants associated with intelligence, and the cost of sequencing is collapsing with time. All we need is the political will. What do you think? Should Richard Dawkins endorse eugenics yet more forcefully to help science win its war against religion? Would you use embryo selection to increase the intelligence of your child? Should governments subsidize this practice? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe and donate crypto so I can keep making videos.